So my name is Todd Mitchell from the Swanage tribe. I'm the Environmental Protection Director for the tribe, and I've been doing that for about 19 years. So my background is I'm the son of Ray and Jennifer Mitchell, grandson of Winnie and Dewey Mitchell from Swanage. I'll tell you my traditional name in a few minutes. So I'd like to thank the Lummi Nation, Northwest Indian College, for inviting me here to be part of this panel. I'd like to thank my panelists, Water and Native World people, for showing me that there's other people thinking of these things out here. You're not alone. There's Native researchers out there. There's Indigenous scientists out there. Where it seems like we're doing these things alone. At our communities as a whole, there's a lot more people doing these kind of things also. These exact kind of things. So many words, so many things. So I have an outline here, which I might follow, maybe. So for our Coast Salish peoples, our Swanage people, we have long-standing traditions of honoring our resources, protecting our resources, thanking Mother Earth for our resources. So we read that story about the Salmon people. We have one just like that. My dad told that just yesterday at our first salmon ceremony, honoring the salmon people for sending their messengers to us to nourish our bodies, but sending their bones back to the water so that the salmon people know we honor them and that more salmon come to help nourish ourselves. That's the very, very short of it. So the work I do in environmental protection, we do the stuff that we have to jump in and fix things right away sometimes. But really, we're in it for the long view. How can we protect our environment to maintain our natural resources? Because our natural resources, especially salmon, are the most important thing for our culture. Our berries, very important for us. How do we do that to maintain those resources that maintains our culture? So what we do, we use the knowledge of our ancestors, like we were talking about here, the stories from our ancestors. Use our indigenous knowledge to help protect our resources. So the work I spent the last 16 years prior to this, or up to 16 years, my first work here at Swanage, trying to figure out how do I use our indigenous knowledge to do these things. So I am trained as a straight-up geologist. Nothing but numbers. That turned me into a data nerd for one thing, but I love data. But it's the very modern, the very Western way of collecting data, reporting on data, writing up theses, writing up research. And it's even, very, very Western. I went to Dartmouth College. I made it through. I can't even. It was very hard. I can tell you that. I got a master's degree close to home at Washington State. Go Cougs. Through all that teaching, all of that education, I had nothing native in there at all. So I spent the last 19 years figuring out how to put those things together. So that's kind of the biggest thing of what I've been doing is how do I put these things together? How do I take this Western approach to science and put it together with our indigenous knowledge? So luckily I don't tell you guys about the Treaty of Point Elliott, right? You guys understand that. But going forward, we got to figure out where you were in the past. And our cultures have adapted a lot. How many things we lost? Language, traditions, parts of our culture. But we needed to do that in some ways. We needed to adapt. be able to live in this world as it is now. I went to the Swanage Language Conference last weekend. Saw a video of my grandfather, recorded by Hilbert back in the day. Speaking the language. I'd heard him speak it because we have a tape, but I'd never seen him. I was too young, and we lived a little ways away from the reservation. So he spoke about naming ceremonies. He spoke about his education. My father and I didn't know this. His mother, my great-grandmother, told him not to pursue the spirit or spirit guide or those kind of ways, but told him to get a regular education, new education, English education. That's what he did. So it's really, we were kind of missing those kind of things. So my traditional name from my great-grandfather is Swaleda. That's passed down from my great-grandfather to my father, to myself, and to my son by the traditions of our family. What's missing in there? It didn't get passed on to my grandfather. He was of that period that he went to the boarding school at Tulalip. There's that period where they did learn something. He learned how to become a carpenter. He helped build the first houses on the reservation. But he didn't pass along the language, didn't teach my father the language. So those are the kind of things we're kind of missing along the way. So how do I pull that information back? How do I pull our stories? How do I put those things together to protect our resources in the way we need to protect them? So that's what I've been working on in many ways, trying to figure those things out. So what were we trying to protect? We're trying to protect our salmon culture. We're trying to protect our clams and those kind of resources. Hunting and gathering, native plants. So I really do look ahead 7 generations. So I like to use the quote from our chairman, but it's a quote that everybody's heard, everybody uses. We didn't inherit this earth from our children, or we didn't inherit this earth from our grandparents or parents. We borrowed it from our children. We're just stewards of this earth. It's just loaned to us. So really thinking ahead, how do we protect those things so they're there for our future? So in putting the kind of Western science together with the traditional science, you really do need to be able to speak to the outside world. You need to collect that data. You need to have that data and in a way that we can communicate it outside. So we do that. We collect data, water quality, air quality, other metrics on the land to be able to talk to the people that way. Water quality standards, we got to talk to them that way. Whether it's the best thing for us, I'm not sure, but that is one way we can talk to them. So the power of our research is that we can continue it. You said you're looking at the snow on the mountain for 10 years. We've been doing our water quality for 25 years. We've been collecting air quality for 25 years. These long data sets help us talk to the outside world on what's going on and how we can protect our environment based on those things. But not to be stagnant either, to be able to use that research to come up with our own tribal policy, come up with our own tribal law, to protect things the way we need to protect them. Implementation, permitting, certification, all that kind of stuff. We need to know that. We need to know those ways. We need to have that outside education to be able to talk to the outside world. We need the lawyers. We really need the lawyers to be able to talk to the outside world, protect our rights. So like I said, so the work trying to get things back, oral tradition, like we're doing right here now, oral tradition, talking about things. A lot of that's been lost also. Those stories not passed down. It's like you're saying, using information that we can find from our allies back in the day, anthropologists collecting data. Trying to get that to the next generation. Those exact kind of things. Pulling full stories back. So we're doing that too. We're trying to come up with some science curriculum. Be able to teach the science of what we do in our work, but relate it to our culture, relate it to our traditions and our stories. And one way we're trying to do that too is trying to think about Indigenous science. So if you think of what is the most simple definition of science, I like to think of it as observing the world to understand it. That's what our ancestors did. You need to know the tides and the currents to go fishing and be successful. When do you go out there to go shrimping? When do you go out there to go halibut? When do you go out there for salmon? Same thing in the woods. Which berries, which plants were medicine and which weren't? Somebody learned the hard way, and that was passed along. So we're trying to do that too. Teach the things of water quality, but why is water quality important? So the one slide I had up here, if you throw it up there. So like I was saying, some things we've lost. Our culture has totally lost knowledge and use of camas. If anybody's familiar with that, I wasn't. Nobody had it around here anymore. We were lucky enough to, I'm sorry, taking up much time. We actually, the tribe actually was able to purchase back some land with many grantors and state parks on the western side of our reservation. And way out on the western side, this little teeny bald that has grass on it, about an acre in size. Came springtime when we first ever got out there in many generations. It was a sea of purple. We're like, what is this? It's beautiful. What is it? We figured out it was camas. Right there on our reservation, we still had a little bit of camas. This had been sold out of trust 80 years ago. Nobody had been out there. We were denied that. So 8 years ago when we went out there, it's like, wow, this is great. Someday we're going to figure out how to reintroduce this. How do we bring this one thing back that we lost? So we've been working on that. We started this year on trying to figure out how to bring it back, how to manage what we have, how to manage it in a traditional way, how to harvest in a traditional way. So there's a picture not from the reservation, but we went down to the South Sound, Chehalis area. Took my family, took another couple of tribal members saying, we got to learn how to dig this. We got to learn where it's coming from. We need to take that baby steps. So I'm going to be proud of my kids jumping right in. Hard work digging that camas. Especially down here, it's really gravelly. So we can bring it back on our reservation eventually. Hopefully have this available at community gatherings. Reintroduce it. This is camas. Our ancestors cultivated it. Our ancestors ate it. So really looking at 7 generations, trying to figure out how to introduce Indigenous science, get it back to our kids. So the program we're working on is geared towards our high school students through the local school district to hopefully, and then get them credit retrieval. Because if I had a hard time in science, I know our young kids have a hard time with science too. Jumping right in, trying to learn this Western way of things when this has not been our way. So hopefully this will help out our kids in learning some of the science. And overall, really, it's developing activities like this, activities like our environmental education at the school to pretty much sustain the relationship between our people and the environment. Help them become the stewards, the next generation of stewards, because we need those people everywhere to learn those things and to be our own stewards. Thank you.